know what you have is the first step. Because how can I make anything physical circulate if we're not even aware of our own inventories within our own buildings? And then from that kind of foundational database, if you will, you can build other things. You can do other things with that.
Welcome to Connected FM, a podcast connecting you to the latest insights, tools, and resources to help you succeed in facility management. This podcast is brought to you by IFMA, the leading professional association for facility managers. If you're ready to grow your network and advance in your career, go to ifma.org to get started. Today, Garry Cooper, CEO and co-founder of Rheaply, sits down with Dean Stanberry, the immediate past chair of IFMA's Global Board of Directors, to discuss the concept and implementation of a circular economy in facility management. They emphasize the importance of knowing and managing inventories, the role of technology and data, and practical steps organizations can take to begin their journey towards a more sustainable future. Now, let's get into it.
I'm very excited to be here. So my name is Garry Cooper. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Rheaply. Rheaply is a Chicago-based climate technology company trying to help build technology to scale the circular economy, especially in the real estate and facilities management world. I'm super excited to be here with my new friend, Dean. Dean.
Thank you, Garry. I am Dean Stanberry. I'm the immediate past chair of IFMA's Global Board of Directors. And I think I'm here today because last year I led a working group that we produced this report called Evolution is Never Finished. And it was about all the emerging trends, and circular economy was the first alphabetically trend that we had in the report. So happy to be here and talk about this topic because it's near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely. Same.
Okay. So what do we want? What do you want to share today on circular economy?
Well, maybe one thing to start would be just the term. And we were talking about before we came here of, in some places in the world, circular economy is still needing to be defined. How do you think about just that term? And also, how do you think about where we are in the understanding about circular principles within the facility management real estate world?
I think the principles of circular economy are certainly easy enough to grasp, to understand. But when you think about it, it has the word economy in it, and it really is a major shift in how the economy functions.
Mm-hmm.
So going from our current linear economy to adopt a circular economy is a long-term thing because there's a lot that has to change. Going all the way back to how, functionally design products.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets into what pricing there is and their lifespan and how they're maintained over their life. So there's a lot of nuances that come into it. But, if you explain to somebody the principles of circular economy, they go, I get it. And then they go, and now how do we get there? And then we're staring at our shoes.
Yeah. And that's actually, that last part is one of the things that we've been trying to circle, literally, pun intended, on at Rheaply is how do we make something that's conceptually right and sound go from theory to practice to impact? And what we found at Rheaply is that technology, data, community, ecosystems, like the whole kind of value chain is on one platform, and then the technology is super critical from taking the concepts of circularity principles, especially in the real estate world, into something that's returning an investment, that's creating impact. Can you talk a little bit about what you think either the role of data or technology is, whether it be software or hardware, in circularity when it comes to the real estate world?
Well, I actually spent 22 years in IT before I took a right turn into real estate and facilities. So, I have a lot more background, I think, in technology than most. But, we have shifted from buildings being inanimate objects to being intelligent and interactive.
Right.
And that all is part of digital transformation.
Right.
And people have heard me say this before. The commercial real estate industry slept through the first 30 years of digital transformation, woke up about 5 years ago. And now we have all of this technology and all these new sensors and all these new things we need to track. We have lots of tools coming out. But in my mind, and apologies to the exhibitors who sell products, I said the technologies The systems are somewhat irrelevant in the sense that they're the digital tin can where we store data. The data is where the value is. And data analytics is how you unlock that value. And that's something that we do not have. We don't have a great competency in commercial real estate, a wide competency in data analytics, data governance yet. So we need to understand what are the most important things to track, where are we going to track it, and then how do we prove it's trustworthy?
One of the quotes that we hold dear at Rheaply is Kate Brandt, who is the chief sustainability officer at Alphabet. She, I think, famously once said, "Waste is a data problem." And when I think about what you were saying about we have all these tools, we can bring all these technology, but the real products, the real value is data. But if our industry is coming out of their slumber from a data perspective, no wonder why there's so much waste. One kind of term that we sometimes use, but is very much used in the space around circular workplaces. And it kind of means something to some people, the other people that kind of go, I know what circular means, I know what workplace means. From your kind of lens, when you think about circularity in buildings, when you think about circular workplaces, what are some of the thoughts, bullets that come to your mind?
Well, as an operations guy, I tend to go back to what are the things that we need and use every day to operate buildings. I mentioned earlier that we talk about embodied carbon and operational carbon. Most people associate embodied carbon with construction, architecture, engineering, construction, which is true.
Right.
That's almost all embodied carbon.
Right.
But I said, but you understand that we have embodied carbon in operations, and operations goes on much longer than the construction project. So I give the examples of, an air filter doesn't incur any operational carbon because it doesn't use energy or whatever, but it took embodied carbon to produce it, to get it there, and to install it in the machine. We use paper products. Every building has, whether it's the restroom products, paper products, paper plates, printer paper, all of those kinds of things. Paper is actually one of the most carbon intensive from an embodied carbon perspective. And so how do we track that? In addition to the normal operational carbon, which is typically associated with energy consumption. How much energy did I consume to operate this building? So, in the workplace, I think they're still trying to define what does a circular workplace mean. But a lot of that is for people that are now living and operating and working in buildings, what is their role in that circular economy? And how do you create that workspace that is honoring the principles of circularity? You're not taking the batteries out of your mouth and throwing them in the garbage. That you have a means of doing something and you're participating in the circular economy and not watching it from the sidelines.
Totally.
IFMA's Knowledge Library is the largest digital collection of quality content specific to the built environment, featuring hundreds of articles, case studies, research reports, videos, and templates. It has helped thousands of facility management professionals learn and leverage FM best practices. It's also 100% free to IFMA members. Visit knowledgelibrary.ifma.org to learn more.
One thing that I, especially here, even last night at dinner, but in general, is, going from, again, theory and concept to like, oh, we have a circular workplace or, oh, we have a circular set of buildings feels multiphasic, multi-year. And what I try to do is say, but how do you get started? Right? Whether, I was sitting at dinner with a person who led, 30 buildings for a public library system, sitting with a person who leads a lot of buildings for a healthcare system. And what we found in the dinner conversation is maybe some of their starting places are actually really similar. And so I was wondering, in the networks that you have, the people that you mentor and oversee, what are some of the ways that you see people get started on the journey of becoming more circular workplace?
I was certified in like quality improvement and process management principles decades ago, but it's something I've carried with me. And what I learned in quality improvement is that you actually have to have a documented process to determine if you can improve it, right? So if you're not following a process, how do you improve, randomness? So I always kind of take it back to the basic blocking and tackling. So first question is, what do you have? What do you have today? And then what do you think or want to improve about it?
Right.
So that you can start setting some sort of a goal or an objective. And from there, you can understand, I know what I have, I know where I want to go, what are some of the steps to get there? And so tactically speaking, it may be a long-term journey,
That's right.
but what you want to do is say, what can I do today?
That's right.
Or this fiscal year?
That's right.
And demonstrate those results. And
That's
I go
right.
up or down. Did I meet my objective? Did I not? If I didn't, what held me back? And don't beat yourself up just because you didn't meet something.
Right.
You're making progress. As long as you're making progress and not going backwards,
Totally.
Then celebrate the successes.
Totally. And as I think about one of the kind of keystones that we hear a lot about Rheaply, and it's funny, we say the first block in the journey is knowing what you have. Because how in the world can you make anything circular?
We didn't script that part.
We didn't. It's literally on our website. Know what you have is the first step. Because how can I make anything physical circular if we're not even aware of our own inventories within our own buildings? And then from that kind of foundational database, if you will, you can build other things. You can do other things with that. But there's a lot of just like first principles. What's in this building? What's in this storage? What's in the wall? And so it's just like really interesting how that matches up with what we hear a lot.
Well, I know furniture is near and dear to your heart. So let's talk about that, because what you need also is practical examples. How can I demonstrate success? And that's a great example because we have a lot of it. And at the end of life of a building or just a renovation of a building and you're going to go put some new stuff in, where does it all go?
Where's it all go?
Overnight, some people come in and it magically disappears and we don't exactly know where it ended up because often we're not specifying,
That's right.
What happens to this stuff.
That's right.
We all know it goes to landfill.
That's right.
And
about 12 million pounds of it.
Yeah. And so one of my colleagues here, Diane, Kamiko Green, she started an initiative around that, which is helping people understand what options do you have.
Absolutely.
That landfill is really the last resort, not the first.
Absolutely.
Not the first choice.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we've seen is, there's been obviously an evolution of how workplaces are being staffed, right? Now, so we're mostly in office. COVID happens, we're out of office. Post-COVID, there's hybrids and remote models. And now we've been hearing this word about flexibility, flex models. Whereas maybe some days we come in 3-5 days a week, but those engineers, they have to come into our office every day of the week until this project is done. And then they can go back to being remote or hybrid. And so what we've heard some of our most trusted customers say is, I need to have things inventory. I know about all my furniture because one day I can have a demand and the next day I can have 500% of that demand. And the next day I can have minus 300% of that demand. And I need to be able to move my assets within my building infrastructure around. And so just the operational components are forcing, in our case, a lot of real estate leaders to do things they wouldn't have done 30 years ago.
That's an interesting point and personal observation. So why don't we have inventories of furniture? It's more of a financial consideration on accrual-based accounting. Most of it's not capitalized.
That's right.
So it's not a tracked asset.
That's right.
And so nobody said we need to track this. They don't think about this is actually part of delivering our business goals and objectives.
Right.
It's part of our revenue generating stream. It's how we deliver some of this stuff. And if you started thinking along those lines and say, this is part of, how we deliver, then you would probably change your perspective and say, maybe we do need to inventory this stuff. What do you take it down to? You take it down to the number 2 pencil? Maybe not.
Right.
But yeah, the big chunks.
Totally.
It's got upholstery on it. Yeah, we're going to inventory that.
It's so interesting that what is a CapEx asset could determine circularity in some ways. Because are we tracking it? Are we managing it? Not to replace, but to use as much as possible to manage it like a piece of value that we can, as I said, flex around whenever we need to, and then be on the hook on the end of life and kind of figuring out where that goes versus treating it as though it's a piece of paper.
Yeah. And the different companies, again, there is no quote specification for capital thresholds. Every
Right.
company is different. They set
Yep.
their own objectives, say
Yep.
3,000, 5,000, 10,000.
Yep.
One entity that I work with, it's 3.6 million. How you
Yep.
come up with that number, I don't know, but
Yeah. One of the things that you said, and so we're obviously starting to explore the European markets and other markets, is the level of, or the role of policy and regulation in encouraging and sometimes forcing circularity. Can you talk a little bit about the levers, if you will, of where you think maybe policy or regulation or compliance fit into the whole world of circularity, especially in the building space?
well, all of this is about behavior, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, there's no software tools that are going to fix this problem.
Right.
So it comes down to people. It's policy, standards, processes, and procedures. And it's shocking these days that how many companies don't have policies. And to me, a policy tells you what must be done, not how to do it. But also, many companies will have a policy, but there's virtually nothing about what are the consequences for not meeting the policy. And then standards are what standards are we following? Is there an industry or an international standard that we want to comply with, that we're using as our guidepost?
Right.
Processes and procedures are really just those things that you write down to say, in our organization or in this department, this is the process,
Yep.
which is higher level. The procedure may vary from one building to
Right.
another based on what's there,
Right.
but that's the very detailed pieces. But if you have nothing, then it's just free form. It's all
Totally.
it's a free for all, and you're operating on tribal knowledge, and we all know how well that goes.
Anything as we close up that you want to convey to the audience about this kind of space and circularity and real estate and workplace?
Well, as we put into our emerging trends report, this is one of those trends that hasn't been part of the core competencies of facility management. And one of the reasons we were looking at it is these are things that are now that are affecting the facility management profession today. And it's going to only become more impactful, if you will, or more need to know. So we're trying to build the awareness. We use the terms awareness, knowledge, and application. First, you have to be aware of it. And so you're not telling be an expert, be aware. Then you might get to the point where I need to learn more. I need to understand how it works. And then the last stage is when you actually apply it in practice.
Right.
And so I think we're very much in the awareness stage with circular economy. Some people are in knowledge and application, but generally speaking, that's where we are. But it's up to the individual and organizations. You have to decide, are you going to put this on your goals to learn about, build that awareness of circularity this year as your company now looking at it, and you better learn because it's going to come your way whether you like it or not.
Right.
Do you want to be prepared or do you want to be surprised?
I love that. That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Shane.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in to the Connected FM podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review the show because it really helps us reach more listeners just like you. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. See you next time.